Hello everyone and welcome back to the Machine Shed. We've got our 5.3 back out of the Corvette, and today before I go to work I've got to get this torn down so we can send the heads in to get checked for cracks. We're going to tear the block all the way down, check the main bearings. We have to pull the pistons and rods as well, because when you're putting a turbo the size of the one that I'm putting on the motor with the boost levels, we've got to open up the ring gaps. We don't want to blow the top off one of the pistons. I'll talk more about that when I get the engine torn down. And my buddy Mike did mention to me that he'd like to see a little bit more of the in-depth work. But you know, honestly, right now I just don't have all the time in the world to do a full-on tear down step by step. I've kind of got to get things rolling because I work a lot. But in the future, I think that's definitely something we'll do. Maybe when we go to a 6-liter, we'll go through it step by step. But right now, unfortunately, I'm kind of in a time crunch because everything I'm doing either before or after work. So, but yeah, that said, let's get this engine torn down. We're gonna pull the intake all the way down to the crankshaft. Here we go. everyone. I wanted to kick this off by saying I apologize. My GoPro died the other day when I was tearing this engine down right at the end there, and I had to kind of rush off to work right afterwards, so I wasn't able to capture the very end of disassembling the motor. Having said that, we did find some interesting stuff. Some stuff that honestly I wouldn't have liked to have seen, but you know, things happen. Everything doesn't go perfectly all the time. So I will actually kick it off with our oil pan over here. A little bit hard to see, but you know, basically we go down in here and you can just see the amount of sludge that's down in there. It's usually not a good sign. I've seen engines like this before. It's usually a result of really, really poor maintenance, long times between oil changes, things like that, not changing your air filter. But really, one of the more worrisome things is that it's not just black sludge. There's actually a fairly significant amount of actual sand in this motor. And take a look at one of the covers here, and it's kind of the same story. It just has a thick layer of that black goo. It's really nasty, and it's everywhere inside the motor. You know, all the way from, you know, the valve train all the way down to the bottom end of the motor. And this is just poor maintenance. It's not a deal breaker, but it's definitely not what we would have liked to see. Let me bring the light over here and see if we can light this up a little more. Down in the block, more of the same. You can see that really sludgy material there on the main caps, and down in the cylinder bores where the piston's not actually stroking down that far, you can see just the sludge buildup on the inside of the cylinder walls. Really minor scoring in the cylinder walls, nothing to be worried about. The block is definitely usable. But it's not what I would have liked to have seen. And now you can see here the sludge there in the cam bearings. That actually goes all the way down, which tells us that this motor had sat with its current state for a while, and pulling the cam out of this thing was not fun. Let's see if we can get a shot. If you can peek down there and see the cam bearings there, so all the way through, you have that black sludge. And when it's cold like this, it basically becomes like super glue. So cam, extremely difficult to come out. Now, the condition of the bearings actually is shocking. I can't believe that these bearings are as good as they are. And that's one big plus. This engine didn't spin any bearings. Nothing, you know, nothing that I'm seeing is telling me that anything's going to be severely out of round. Take a look at the pistons here. It's really just more of the same story. You know, that's what not changing your oil does. Running, you know, out. They tell you, oh, you run this oil, you can go 8,000. Well, they can tell you that all they want, but this is what the inside of your engine really looks like when you're doing that. And same goes for changing the oil filter. Here's the cam. No smoked lobes, but some lobes definitely showing a lot more wear. And of course over here to the crank. Now, I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but there's just particles of dirt everywhere in this motor. Now, the cam somehow made it, or the crank rather, somehow made it out alive too. You can see this brown stripe there down the center of the journals. That is actually risen up probably 1,000th, and it's sludge is what it is. But that's okay. This can be polished. Overall, you know, I actually looked a little harder to find a low mileage or lower mileage LS motor This motor was advertised as having, you know, just over 100,000 on it. And if I'm being honest, that's a possibility. You know, it could have been just they didn't do maintenance. But, you know, in all honesty, I think this motor probably had 200,000 or more on it. It's not a deal breaker. We can still work with this. But I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to change our plan a little bit in terms of what we're going to do. And I'm actually going to use this opportunity. We'll go ahead and do a sort of backyard motor rebuild where I'm actually going to do all the work myself. The block I'm going to send to the machine shop just to get new cam bearings. Other than that, we'll break out the bore indicators and the micrometers, and we'll rebuild this engine right here in the machine shed, because from what I'm seeing, this isn't an engine that I'd like to put a ton of money into, but we can make it run really well, and we'll throw a turbo on it, and you know, we'll just send it all the way. And if she blows, and we won't look back. Eventually, I'm going to try running into a 6-liter that's in good condition, and you know, this really shows a guy too that, you know, what you see on the outside isn't always what's inside, and what a guy tells you might not be true. You always hope for the best, but you know, I expected this could happen, so I'm not super disappointed, but I'm also not super ecstatic. I wish it would have been a little bit better than this. I was hoping for it, but like I said, plus side is no spun bearings. You know, no dropped valves, you know, nothing crazy like that. No broken pistons. All the parts are there. It's just this engine. And, you know, I believe this engine did probably run. Oh, another thing with the block here. Guess it's hard to see with no light in there, but let me grab the light. All the lifters are stuck in the bores, you know, and that's not a big problem. You can actually push those down through the bottom. I just didn't do it because at the time I was kind of frustrated pulling this apart. It was kind of a bummer, but like I said, we'll work with this. We'll use what we got here. It'll give me a chance, and I'll show you guys how I do a kind of backyard rebuild. I've done tons of these where I just, you know, I've taken parts that I couldn't afford to buy and refurbish old parts. We have, you know, we could buy new parts, but I don't want to do it for this particular motor. We're just, like I said, we're going to recondition a lot of this stuff, reuse it. We're going to buy where we need to buy. And I think we're going to just search out a 6-liter, and we'll have fun, get the whole turbo setup done with this 5.3, and we'll just send this thing till it throws parts all over the road. And then we'll switch over to a 6-liter, which, you know, that's the inevitable, or, you know, that's the dream really, is to have the 6-liter. But yeah, anyways, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get some new cam bearings in the block. I'm going to clean all this stuff myself, and I'll take you guys with me and show you how I do things. You know, I got my own way of doing everything. I'll do it backyard style, but I'll also show you how I measure everything to make sure that this is going to work, because you can't just throw, you know, bearings in something and expect for it to go well. We have to check for, you know, out of round clearances, you know, things of that nature. And it's not hard either. Once you do it once, you can do it forever. And that's about it. So in conclusion, we kind of didn't do so well on this motor, but it does have 706 heads. So that's kind of a cool thing. You know, we got a little bit higher compression there, and I think it's going to work just fine. We'll put a big ass turbo on it and send her to the moon. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you are watching, drop a like for me. Maybe leave a comment down below and give me some inspiration here, because this kind of hurt a little bit. But, you know, I think people have seen this before with these LSs. You got to remember, they came in, you know, work trucks, everything. They came in everything. So this guy could have been mowing lawns for a living and
maybe he didn't have the money to get anything but the Walmart oil change, you know. So thanks again and have a great day.